Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, from wherever you are joining us from. So, welcome for today's webinar. So, we will be discussing about youth and political participation in Africa. So, I think we will be looking at challenge and perspectives. Okay, so what steps forward as African, youth we need to take into consideration for the future. So I hope we're gonna stay until at the end. As you already mentioned, I think David already introduced me. My name is Samuel Sentinela. I am former regional organizer for the Southern Africa at African Rising Movement. And thank you once again for joining us. So for the all participants, you can feel free to write, anything you want on the chat box, so you can actually tell us where you are connecting from. So, because we would like to know, I believe. And then, yes, feel free, because today we have a kind of wonderful and amazing panelists. I will start with we have here represented Tanzania. We have even Exaud, and we also have. You can just apologies because the pronunciation of the names here. Some people can try to kill me, so sorry. But we have Dieudonné Costa from actually Angola, but based in South Africa. And
Correct.
we have Musila Muoki from Kenya. And we have Kundai Nguena from Zimbabwe. And then we have Amogelang Chikunyana and also Killa Ace. And as I have already mentioned, I'm part of the team. I will be moderating this session. So I will give you once again welcome, guys. So as we know, this week, I think from 19 until 29, we are celebrating the kind of Africa Day. It's like Africa Week, I can say, regarding to 25th of May. As we know, most of African countries, got their liberation looking to the 1960s, and we have this as kind of unit day created, by AU in Ethiopia. So for this year, we continue to celebrate the date, and then we have as motto our Africa, our future. So I think the idea today is to debate, okay, reflecting on the political participation of youth, and we will look at the challenge and the perspectives, as I have mentioned, and also taking into account the internal and external political phenomena. So I will start with the first question. This is for everyone. Let me start with Mr. Costa. So can you just, go through the overview of youth political participation in Africa? So this question is for everyone, but I will start with Mr. Costa.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, on my side, it's perfect.
Nice, great. Hi, everyone. Evening, morning, and afternoon, wherever you're watching us from, or if it's a recording on live. And I'm glad to be here with everyone else. And I think with regards to the question asked, like just having an overview, like an overview of youth political participation in Africa. Most of the time, I like to position myself more in the space that I work in as well, practically as an architect, as an urbanist, and coming from a arts and youth empowerment or community development background. So, and being from Angola as well, and now being based in South Africa, I can speak. I can speak from both perspectives. And just putting it simply, I think I believe that in Angola, despite the like youthful demographics, the number of percentage of youth population, political engagement among youth still is still limited due to historical political structures that we still have, and limited avenues as well for meaningful involvement. So, I mean, lack of proper structures and community engagement, or being able to mobilize people or educate people in the importance of active citizenship or citizenship participation in this kind of conversations. Although it has been different for the past few years towards the last elections that we had, so things have changed quite a lot in the good way. And on the other side, being South Africa, witnessed a completely different reality. So we see, and South Africa is also known for a lot of vibrant and historical youth activism, from Soweto uprisings to many other movements that we saw, and something very recent as well that also, I think the first time that I came to South Africa a little bit over 10 years ago was also the beginning of movements like Roads Must Fall and Fees Must Fall that spread beyond the continent, and which is now this year celebrating 10 years. And these are also some examples of the power of student or youth-led protests in influencing national discourse. But I think with still within that, translating this kind of activism into sustainable political participation is still a challenge. It's still a challenge. Yeah, but that's my perspective.
Thank you very much, Costa, for this,
Only.
wonderful contribution. So we have Killa Ace from Gambia. So, what is your actually also your overview on youth political participation? As we know, Gambia recently we have issue related to our brother from Ethiopia. So was arrested, as we know. So I think it was also trying to, let's say, defend, was trying also to represent young people, in the political participation. So, what is the overview you have through this, brother Killa Ace? Killa Ace, can you hear me?
Seems like you can't hear us.
Okay. Okay, it's fine. So I can move to Evans. Evans, you can align, responding to the question, the overview you have about young people participation in political, position, let's say, making like political decision actually in the African continent. So what's the overview you have, please? Can you give us your insights? I think probably might be facing sound or technical issues, probably. Da Costa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can still hear you.
Yes, Evans? Phil Ace?
He was nodding just now. I'm not sure if he can still hear us or had some challenges on his side.
Kundai? Kundai, can you hear us, please? Okay, let's just move. If we don't have these, will be really great to have their insights. And if we are facing this, let's try to see if they can catch up, while we are moving. So, so sorry, Costa. Once again, we
Yeah.
go the overview, looking to the public, let's say, public policies in Africa, okay, and the implication for youth participation, right? So, as we know, as African, so we have, let's say, the liberations movement, and then we have political leaders that some of, looking to the contest, they say, I have free you. I brought the freedom, I brought the liberation. So this is my country. So what's and how do you see this perspective of this kind of position, but also looking to Okay, let's see the public policies, because we know that in the decision-making bodies, we find less young people there. So what is your opinion looking to public policies and also the implementation in the youth participation in the continent?
I'm glad you mentioned. I'm glad you mentioned implementation, because
Okay.
I think we have great policies, especially in South Africa. I can say that there is great policies. There's a lot of programs, and yeah, a lot of work that has been done in um, oh, like bringing up progressive public policies to some extent. But I think it all comes down to nothing when we struggle with implementation. And I think that's where we have the huge question mark on what can we do about it. And because we see the contrast between having great public policies and then having huge rates of youth unemployment, or having programs for like to support entrepreneurship or integrating youth in different like in different kinds of programs like for youth empowerment, and then still struggling with so many or such huge socioeconomic disparities and marginalization of different groups. It still reflects that we're very far from, yeah, the practice is still very far from the theory. And an example, like in Angola, we have the PND. It's like a plan for national development, and includes a lot of sections on youth and employment now, and aiming to integrate young people into the labor market. But uh, that's still hindered by the political participation that is often, how can I say, framed narrowly within like state session sanctioned youth organizations, if I could put it that way. And so I think there's quite a few challenges on that. And with regards to South Africa, I can give an example as well of the National Youth Development Agency that does quite a lot of work supporting youth entrepreneurship, skills development, and civic participation. But in terms of like reach and effectiveness and marginalized groups, especially in rural and peri-urban areas, we can still see that there's still quite a lot to do. There's still quite a lot of ground to cover. So I believe that from what we can see, from what the data shows, from discontentment that people still express through different spaces and mediums, if it's through the arts and through the labor market, or contesting for different opportunities, even for education and so on, that still reflects that our implementation strategies are very far from allowing us to fulfill those dreams that we express in public policies. And yeah, I think we need to start target the basic, fulfill those gaps, and then we can jump into doing or planning other things.
Thanks.
So that
Yes.
would be my take on it from what I've observed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really perfect. Gosh, that is really perfect. So let me try to get other insight from other
yeah,
finalists, and let me try
yeah.
to see if we can connect with the Chikunyana from Botswana. Can you can you hear us, please?
Yes, I can. Would you mind
Oh,
please repeating the question for me, please?
yes, thank you, thank you. I was checking if you were together. Yes, there is the overview of the public policies, okay, in Africa, and also looking at the implementation for the youth participation.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much for that question. And I think Botswana, speaking from a background coming from Botswana, I would say Botswana has gone over and beyond. I know we haven't met the target yet, but the current president has made sure that young people are represented in the parliament where decision making happens. We currently have the Minister of Youth, Honorable Liseho Chombo, currently sitting as the Minister of Youth and Gender Affairs. And there's not only her, there are many others. Currently, the current parliament comprises of approximately 36% of young people being in there. So out of 61 reps that we have in parliament, we have 36% of them being young people. So I think it's a right step for our leaders to see the value that young people can bring in such settings when decisions are made, so that they also have an input on the policies that we've seen from before. And also looking in the past and what young people have done for us today, they've inspired also to take a stand and to speak on things that we are not happy about, and do it in such a legal way and not be fighting the law. But I think we're empowered enough now, and through platforms like this, we're able to learn from each other and go about how to influence policies that will include us, and the things that affect us. So I think from that angle, I think we're doing very well, and we're a very good example for other African countries also to follow suit and do things the way that we are. Yeah,
Okay.
that's my take.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. So I will actually ask for those who are not actually addressing now can put, their devices in mute. So I can get background noise. I don't know. I think one of the finalists have, yeah. Thank you very much once again, dear sister from Botswana. Actually, about Botswana, we have a lot to learn from. I have been, watching a lot of good examples about Botswana, and we will take these as a takeaway, so we can learn. We can learn, and I think also we need to have a kind of open, let's say, platform for African, youth, because sometimes we have good practices in the different countries, and then we don't replicate in other countries. So I think this will be, let's say, one of the good platforms we can use to share, for this knowledge transfer, but also to make sure that we can help each other to advocate and to make sure that we can reach the same level for those who are doing well. Okay. And also, as she mentioned, and thank you once again. And we can move now to Gambia. Kill Ace, can you get us? Can you hear? Kill Ace. I think Gambia is not okay. Now let's move to Zimbabwe. Kundai, can you hear us? Kundai? No feedback from Zimbabwe. So let's Evans from Tanzania. Okay. So I think we can move to Ruto. Let's go to Kenya. So Moki, are we together?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, thank you, brother. Thank you. So, taking in the same perspective, so we are talking about the overview of the public policies, okay, in Africa, and also the implication, okay, of the youth participation. Kenya has been, let's say, a stage of, I can say a good example of youth participation. Okay. And I've been in Kenya, and then I could at least, see what young people have been doing. We have Gen Zs, and we have different young people engaged, okay, to advocate for policy change and also for accountability. And this is good as a young people, above all as the citizens, because we have a government, and also they are the ones who need to, be accountable to us. We need to make sure that everything that is written, the policies has to be implemented, and if it's not good implemented, we need to raise our voice and to ask why it's not happening how it should be. And Kenya is one of the great and good examples of youth participation in the last days. And can you just give, the overview in the Kenyan perspective?
Okay, thank you so much. In Kenya, just like almost every other country across Africa, our politics, our policy spaces are still dominated by the old elite politicians, career politicians, and families that have always been there in a system that is sort of hereditary, and the who's is who in a country. So I think that is where the issue with the policy implementation starts, with the African youth, with the Kenyan youth, simply because, for me, I feel like, with all the policies that we have, because almost in every other country we do have those policies that are seeking to address particular issues that affect the youth. But then again, for me, I feel it's like the crop of politicians that we have come up with these policies, just as a formality, as a way of showing us that we are doing something, without the intention of really seeing it through, or rather implementing the policies all through. And the reason why I say this is because when you look at even the political parties that we have in our nation, the structures are always dominated by the senior most individuals and persons, and that still cuts across every other state entity, all the system, all the departments, and everything. And what you are now beginning to see across Africa, and in the example of Kenya, like you mentioned with the Gen Zs, is the realization that in as much as we have these policies in place, they are never going to address our issues. They are never going to have any tangible impact on our lives. And that's why you are seeing now the youth are moving to actually demand, you saying you are the leaders of today or even the future. You are saying that we have the policies that cater to our affairs, but where is the outcome? Where is the outcome of that? So the policies that are there, they're promising us a lot, but then at the end of the day, we are not seeing any tangible impact of what you are supposed to see from those policies. So the extent of the voice of the youth that you are seeing across Kenya, I believe it's that realization, because for the youth, maybe if I use the example of a political party, for a young person to come through, you must appease a lot of senior people and politicians within these places for them to do you a favor, not because they are considering that you are qualified or anything of that sort. So I think yes, as a nation, as a continent, we've come a long way. We have those youth policies. We have certain quotas maybe that are there to encourage participation, but then the implementation remains seriously weak, and we have all those barriers in place affecting every other nation, every other country. The legal framework, does it favor the youth? In certain areas, like in politics and participation, it's all about resources. Do the youth have them? When you require $1 billion campaign for you to be elected, I mean, when are the youth gonna feature in that perspective? And like I began by saying, the entrenchment of the political elites. We still have the old people that were in politics way before in the 80s, way before I was born or anything, and they are still there within the systems. They are resisting, sharing power with the young generation, and so on. And so maybe what the youth are looking at is, for example, maybe just the lowering of the ages for the candidates and so on. And we are seeing a lot of movements, for example, like with the youth parliament, which again, even when some of these systems exist, you can't really place where their impact is, when or where their voice matters in policy making and decision making within a country. So yeah, we have those elements of participation, but some of these measures they are not always effective, and that's why you are seeing a lot of us young people, we are turning to social media, we are turning to town halls and whatever other platform that we can get, at least trying to seek a better platform where we can be heard, where our voices, can be featured.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Morco. And then this actually is not, as you have mentioned, just for Kenya. Is a challenge that most of African countries, are going through. Actually, we have some countries with best practice that we can just replicate in our countries, like good examples, but we still have these, a challenge that we have, as you mentioned, all, let's say, people, let's say, that they don't want to, let's say, change or leave the power, as I've mentioned in the beginning. When we look at the liberation movements, like most of them, I will not mention some names, but it's like some people, they say, this is my country. Okay, it's like I brought freedom, and then if I did this, so this country belongs to me. So it's like take the country as his property, and this is not true, as we know. So African is for like Africa is for Africans, and our country is also for all citizens. So we have the constitution that has to be followed, and then when we don't have this happening on the ground, so we need to do what you have been doing, for example, to demand. Okay, we need to demand. And as also our sister from Botswana said, we need to use legal frameworks sometimes that we need to demand. Like we need to have youth representation. We need to have youth, needs discussed, in parliament and stuff. And we need these resources for you to develop. So why we cannot have this with us? So I think this is really good address. Well, thank you from Kenya, and now I will move to. Let me see here. We have. I don't know if we still have these comrades with us from Tanzania, also from Zimbabwe. I will try. I can see Kundai here. Kundai, are we still together?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, thank you. So tonight, looking actually, when we say looking in Zimbabwe perspective, as we are brothers, African brothers, we share sometimes the same challenge. So it sometimes feeds to the all African countries. So, to what extent do the independence, for example, of African states and the legacy of liberation movements today despite the political participation among new generations of young people? So, what is your opinion? What's your overview through this?
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for this platform where we can interact and discuss. I see some colleagues. So thank you for that. Getting straight into the matter of the day. What I would like to share first, I would like to come back to what my brother from Kenya mentioned, the issue of always having these people in power willing, or maybe always showing that they want to then remain in power. And this has been so much, especially for these political parties that have been into existence for the longest across Africa, despite it's like it's not a Zimbabwe issue, like he rightfully said. So in that regard now, one thing that I would actually put in as a comment is the issue of numbers, to say some of these politicians that tend to have a soft spot for the youth are actually encouraging that we leverage on the numbers that we have. That is, if we are to be able to come together. And that now comes down to the issue of smart advocacy, which Amo yet rightfully shared. So you find that these people in leadership, most of them, they are politicians. And if you look at maybe the expertise in terms of their backgrounds, some of them, they've just been known as politicians, or they might just not have so much of these different thematics, your environment, your health, and so on. So in that regard, some things we have also seen to work is that if you are able to be in interactions with them, and then you provide, be it an advocacy paper, or be it some form of research or anything that you can provide, for those that are willing truly to serve their communities, is according to is to be able to honor what their pledges in terms of the electorate. For those that are willing, they are able to actually take up those matters. So at the end of the day, you might not be present in that particular august house, but at least what you have highlighted or what you have advocated for is present in that particular space. So it also comes down to the issue of the previous colleague highlighted the issue of these policies and also these pieces of legislation and all that. I'll give a very recent example. In my country, we have the Climate Change Management Act. And when this act was being, when they drafted the bill, we had to actually go to lobby through the ministry to say, we want to make sure that youths attend these consultations and present their what they look forward in that particular piece of legislation. And then when we were then, when they started the communications, they would advise, we'll be having consultations at this place and so and so. And then from there now, we had to then say, can you provide the working documents so that we are aware of the working documents? Because when it comes to youth participation, it's one thing for somebody to be present, but it's another thing for somebody to be able to contribute. And then we take up those contributions for implementation. So many times the youths that we have, they could be present for statistical purposes, just for one to say 10% is present. But the question is, yes, the 10%. Hello? Can I continue?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Yes. But the question then remains, the 10% that was present, did it contribute to the outcome of what we have gathered here for? Or it contributed to the pictures, not to the, be it a position paper, a declaration paper, etc. So at the end of, so one other issue that is there, that we've also seen working, is to, it might not yield the results that we need, but at least it's a step ahead in the right direction, to also engage the youths. Like my brother from Kenya, you highlighted about the youth caucus, these groups and all that. We also have one in my country. What we simply do is sometimes we even call the chairperson for the youth caucus to say, comrade, gentlemen, this is what we want to see when you go and present to the cabinet, or when you go and present to wherever you're presented. So at least we have managed to be able to influence this, the ongoing budget, where we're talking about our matters as the youth, but leveraging on the issue of what? Numbers. So I'm sure the issue of the use of frameworks, the issue of leveraging on numbers, the issue of leveraging on policies that these parliamentarians have signed or have adopted, and then we ride on those things in terms of advocacy, to simply say, this is what you signed for, whether you were sleeping or not, but this is what you signed for. So we would like to see that particular change. And then the last issue that we have also seen is the issue of these youth boards that I would like to use the word mushrooming. We have a lot of youth advisory boards, youth influential boards, whatever it is. We can also leverage on those youth boards so that we can actually have more like a consultative process in any particular matters. Because what I've realized with some of these politicians, if you come and say 1,000 people have said this, because they are looking into numbers for the next election, they are able to turn their ear or eye and say, you know what, let's talk, let's discuss what were these 1,000 people from my constituency saying. And then you present your matters in writing now. The challenge we have is the in writing part, because we have realized that emotions or whatever it is, they cannot influence any decision. But the writing part, something that is written down, because African governments are bureaucratic, it's something that we cannot run away from. So possibly, without wasting much time, for now, those have been my submissions. But allow me not to go without mentioning this. When we talk about youth participation, we must also try and also zero in on young women participation. Young women participation, they face a lot of challenges in these spaces. Why? Because most of these young women that most people they are looking into for these political spaces, they are looking into people who are there for statistical purposes, not for meaningful purposes, because they don't want to be challenged at the end of the day. So those are some of the challenges, but together we stand, divided we fall. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Kundai, for this vibrant, contribution. And actually, this is one of the challenges we have when it comes to youth participation. We know that as African, we have different cultures, that the women are mostly marginalized, and we cannot, leave these aside. And you are really right, because it's just a matter of number. Because as we know, our government, because they want to be good at the picture, from the Western pictures, like, okay, we have women, we have, let's say, youth participation, as you said, and then sometimes we don't have these youth ideas included, in the final, let's say, statements, for example, like, okay, we have decided that, and then we have these participation, and they decided these, and we are thinking of implementing this. So sometimes we have young people as number, because some governments, they just want to appear. And you are right, so we need to keep working, we need to keep pushing, so we can have young people voices heard, okay, in the decision making bodies. So we need to fight, fight, fight. Thank you once again, Kundai. Thank you. And looking to youth participation, and here is something really important. I think that we can just tackle a little bit, is related to, we have a youth participation, let's say, in general, okay, like any, okay, let's say Costa have had mentioned, like, we have some rural communities, we have people less kind of marginalized people, for example, they are not part of any political party, okay. So sometimes we have this challenge also in many of African countries when it comes to participation, when it comes to opportunity. For example, Sentinela is just a young people, like a young person, sorry, like the youth. Is not part of any political party. Are we getting the point? So how these can participate? Okay, I'm not from, let's say, INC. I'm not from Chama Chama Pinduzi. I'm not from ZANU PF. I'm not. I'm just someone who's living, let's say, in a community, but as a youth, I have, let's say, perspective, I have ideas, I also have a right to participate, right? So how do we think this is being, what is your overview in this matter when it comes to African countries? So we have our brother from Gambia. So I will ask him to give us an overview, okay, when it comes to this matter, so we can actually see how we can improve and what can be done to advocate and to have more and more young people participating in this, decision making body. Killa Ace.
Thank you. Greetings, everybody. Salute to everybody inside of this particular session. It's Killa Ace from Gambia. Special salutations to all the viewers. Thank you so much for having me to be part of this great discussion, which is very important, not just to me, but in the Gambian context. Just to give a little brief in the for the situation of our country as far as the youth are concerned. We've been in a dictatorship for more than 22 years. And within that dictatorial era, there was a blackout of information. There was fear. People couldn't speak up, and everybody was technically silent. And the participation of people in general, when it comes to politics and being on the opposite side has always been a challenge since the dictatorial era. Now, moving forward in the new dispensation, the so-called democracy that we have today, we are still suffering from the aftermath of the 22 years of mindset that people have been living in. When we say participation, for me, it's very broad and it's very wide. Because, example, in Gambia, youths do participate in politics, some to a certain extent, but only as cheerleaders, only as those to make the noise for these politicians. And their involvement is more on a cheerleading basis than, one occupying position or even being part of the decision making when it comes to politics itself. So, unfortunately for Gambia, that has been our challenge, which is trying to engage the young people, not in just politics in general, but civic knowledge and education, which can give them, the power to contribute and participate effectively. So we've been lacking that, as we've been living in a country where the lack of information, was the tool for the former president to stay into power. To put it into context, like a majority of the Gambian youth can tell you how many goals Cristiano Ronaldo scored or Messi scored, and give you all of these stats, right? But cannot quote you one line from the Constitution, that's very important to them. That's the situation we live in. So that's how our movement was founded. It's called Believe in Yourself, Gumsa Bopa. And we figured that we have to use other tools to engage these young people, not even into politics, but into the conversation of the country itself as a starter before we even get deep into, the other sides of the things. But from the social perspective, they have issues from police brutality to youth unemployment to, we have one of the highest rates of migrants that are trying to go to Europe by the sea, like per capita. So these are the things that we face as a country. So as an organization, it's been a challenge to get an enlightened, informed population of young people who are now, knowing what's happening in the country. They're hip about, what's the situation or what's going to be happening with issues that's going to be relating to them. And we've been trying, there's been some changes. There's more participation and involvement and awareness, than before. But that has always been the challenge, which is to get the youth involved in their civic participation in general, which includes politics and amongst many other things. So there's also another form of engagement and participation, which is sometimes underlooked, which is sometimes we tend to focus on youth and occupying power, right? So in the Gambian context, again, from somebody who lives with the youth don't really care about politics because it doesn't seem to benefit them. Like during the last campaign to remove the dictator, the youth were at the front line. The youth came out in numbers, and played a major part. Now these people come into power, and they're the only ones enjoying. Unemployment is on the increase. So now the youth be like, why do I even have to engage in politics? I participated the last time and things are even worse. Let me just go to my corner, try to find some food for the pocket. You understand? So because of the disappointments of the people in power who were once inspired and empowered by the youth, because of their forms of messing up, and also sidelining the youth after coming into power. It also equally discouraged the young people from even being involved in anything that has to do with politics whatsoever, because they feel like they've been used and abused and don't see any point in voting, because the last guy who they voted for promised them that they won't go to the boats no more, promised them that there's going to be employment, and promised them things that matter to them the most, and those are still, going, down the drain, and it's becoming worse day by the day, which is another problem. So, I don't know who's the moderator. Let me know if I'm talking too much, because I'm just talking
No,
of
no,
a
you
few
still
points.
have, yeah, actually, you still
Mhm,
have 1 minute, actually.
mhm.
Yeah, you have still have time. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you see, power just went out, electricity just went out, as you can see. So, and now these are things why the young people don't want to participate in politics, because they feel like when they participated and played their part when it really mattered most, at the end of the day, they became neglected. They ended up going and dying in the seas. They're here in environments where electricity is going back out. So now the politicians themselves are discouraging the youth from participating in politics because of their final reactions after being having the youth engaged inside of politics. Sorry, let me try to get some natural light. Electricity went out. Yeah. So basically, those are some of the key issues, especially when it comes to Gambian context. But for us, before the political engagement in politics, and also another example, there was another young leader who came out with a political party, very young and charismatic, spoke the language of the youth, right? And everybody was happy that, oh, we have a new face, which is in the political sphere. And guess what happened? Now he's the mouthpiece of the government.
Really?
So, so to some extent, the youth are also given the opportunity to also play their part. But those in my country that participated also ended up sidelining with the oppressor, or sidelining with the same system that the youth were not happy about. So that's also discouraging to youth in general. Now, nobody's going to take anybody serious when you come as a presidential aspirant, because of the last guy, how he approached. He had the youth happy. He was at the front of the protest, and people were like, this is the guy for the youth. And now he's the spokesperson. He actually has a ministerial position. I'm calling him spokesperson because he defends everything that the government does through the Ministry of
That's,
Information. With all due
yes.
respect to him, he's a brother from before in the struggle, but that is the situation. And in situations like that, you know, leads to youth even giving up and even not even wanting to participate in the process at all. So yeah, that's just
Thank you.
I might just point it off, and then I'll,
Yeah.
I'll come back to probably I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Killa Ace. Thank you, Killa Ace. So this is not just for Gambia. I think most of the African countries they have the same strategy because it's about focusing on the leader because they, as you have said, they know that that one is the leader. So if that is the leader, let's just approach and give some good proposals. And sometimes as young people, we as our brother from Kenya said, we have a lack of resources. Okay, and as youth organization, this also happens. We have good organizations, let's say, on the ground that they represent good young peoples on the ground. But what's happened sometimes the government comes with, let's say, um, not really policy, but they do things that they try to, you know, destroy what have was built for these young people. Sometimes they take the leader, they give them, let's say, kind of opportunities in the government because they know if they take the leader, actually the movement doesn't exist anymore. And sometimes we most, let's say, look for, let's say, good life when it comes to resources, like have a good job, have, you know, food on the table. And when you get this kind of, let's say, opportunities, proposals, actually, not opportunities, this is a proposal. Because they know, like, if we take this guy, actually, we are destroying the strong movement that's been showing. So they take, but sometimes if we think with the stomach, definitely we go. But thank God we still have some good leaders, like youth leaders in Africa, that they don't leave themselves, they don't sell themselves, they didn't change their mind. Even with this proposal, they say no, I will stick with young people, I will stick with these, marginalized people, I will still, amplifying their voices, and I will still raising awareness about what is political participation, what is their right, and how to demand. So is what's happened. This is a strategy of many governments in the continent they use. When they see a rising leader, they say, that one, Costa, that one is a good leader. So target him. Okay. We have Morty, that one is a good one. So just try, okay, to give him a good job, okay, give him a good proposal, because they know that if they do, at least you will lose power and then they can control you. As we know, once they give you resources, they control you. Is how many of African countries are controlled by the Western, right? So we go because they give us resources, they give us money, and then they ask us to fulfill some goals, even if it's against our good, let's say, well-being, because we want to get that money from IMF, because we need that support, because we need that, and then we are not looking at the real African people needs when it comes to political perspective, because we have the government, but government is made, let's say, made by people. Okay, people, when they say sometimes as a Zimbabwean, but not saying in the name on behalf of Zimbabwean, but himself sometimes. And when you say yes as Kenyan, but it's not Kenyan at all, but himself. So sometimes it's really difficult. And thank you, Brother Killa Ace, for this wonderful, yes, wonderful, because I have, watched, I think 2 weeks ago, um, your demonstration, okay, your demonstration, and we have one of our brothers, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm part of African Rising Movement. Our brother Aliba was arrested, was supporting you in Gambia, and was arrested, but thank God now he's released, and this is good. So now I think we can move, okay, we can move to other country that we didn't listen to yet, okay. We have already traveled to Botswana, we went to South Africa and Angola, we went to Kenya, we went to Zim, okay, to Zim, and also about Zimbabwe. I miss Masvingo. I need to go back to Masvingo, sister. I will be there soon. And also now we have Tanzania. Exaud is possible to connect to you. Evans. Yes, I think we don't have definitely events from Tanzania, because also we would like to have, his perspective in different matter looking to West Africa, because we have Tanzania, and then it will give us a briefing, because it's also a country led by women. So we want to see something, how things are in Tanzania, because it's led by women. And recently, I think that we have another country led by women, okay, since this
Yes,
year or last year.
Namibia.
Namibia, yes. So we hope in the upcoming 2 years we can just make kind of comparison to see how women are leading the continent. Okay, and as we don't have events from Tanzania, I will move with Costa. So Costa, once again, I would like to, to get from you. First, we have in Africa, for example, we have, let's say, a case of Rwanda, and also Asia, China, that the citizens have access to a quality of life that, let's say, is considered acceptable, right? Okay. Um, but the social contract made with the state, actually sometimes they ordained for the enjoyment. For example, sometimes they talk about dictators, kind of dictatorship, right? But some people, they say they have good life, okay, and let's say the government provides, let's say, good public services, when it comes to education, when it comes to health, when it comes to transportation and different sectors. So they see these guys are doing well in the health, they are doing well. So, but when it comes to participation, so they don't have these, let's say, open space to do this. So I would like to know, okay, how do you look these issue in the African context and its implications for Africa, for example? Because we claim that we don't have good education, we don't have, let's say, good, healthy system working. Okay, I'm from Mozambique, but actually I can say African citizen because I travel and I have opportunity to see how in common we have as Africans. And we can see that the same sometimes we are facing as a challenge in Mozambique when it comes to education is the same in Angola. Okay. And where when it comes to public services are not so good. And yeah, and I would like to know if we look at this perspective where we have good public services and we have everything that is on top, and we don't have this political participation, and how do you think this can have this implication for Africa, for African context?
Yeah, I think we have quite a few of these cases, and not only in Africa, but all over. You could have mentioned South Korea, North Korea, and some other countries as well in Latin America. And I think that's a very complex situation, because it's like you suppose or you expected to do this trade-off and choose between development and democracy. And so I think that's something very interesting, but it's also like a false binary. Like you're supposed to choose between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when you demand both, like you're not given. So it's like it's either infrastructure or inclusion or growth or social growth, now growth of the country, or you trading it for your dignity. I think to that extent. And so that's like basically, if we, I don't know how it works. I've never been to Rwanda, but we know what we hear, and the discontentment as well from youth and so many other bodies as well. And I think that's I won't say that that's an example that should be followed, because we basically just justify authoritarian governance in the name of stability. But at the same time, we silencing voices as well that are critical for innovation, equity, and our social accountability. So, and I think that's definitely disempowering young people, which is the opposite of what we're supposed to do. And as was mentioned before, we're like basically telling young people that they're just supposed to wait for their turn. And while the ones that we found in power, as mentioned, are still there with those elites and technocratic structures that we found, and that are supposed to make decisions on our behalf. But that's not the way that it's supposed to be. And I think this is also being contested, and like with people that are or youth, not only in Africa, but also in the diaspora, people from some of these countries as well that have seen, that have lived, and have very different opinions from what we know to be the normal people, saying that they are content or happy with that reality. But because people are informed today, people are connected, and they see what's happening in other spaces, and they understand as well that you don't need to give up your dignity or your voice so that you can develop, so that your country can go forward. Because if we had to reflect back historically, that's not our people's way. That's not how that's not our culture. That's not our identity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very complicated, and definitely not advisable, because our political rights are not, it's not like we expecting or we want, it's not a luxury. basically, but it's foundational. That's like it's meaningful, and we need that for sustainable development. And I can say as well that, like, more from a urbanistic or cultural perspective, has a creative restricting people's expression of what they believe things could be or how things could be done. That's also a way of or silencing or suffering the public participation, creative thinking, or even grassroots innovation of movements will die because of that. So,
Definitely.
and I think people on the ground probably have these experiences as well. And just to conclude as well, I think cities thrive when they reflect the voices and needs of their communities, if it's rural, if it's urban, whatever, young, old. So these platforms are important. So we need to have that space. And that doesn't happen in an environment where you have fear that is dominated by fear or censorship, because it's just the same that it's happening in other places. The only difference is that you're trading off the development or the good or quality of life for that. But in return, you're giving your freedom of thought. The cultural diversity is also erased or inhibited, and there's no participatory governance in that case. So yeah, I think as Africans, as Africans, we need to forge our own path. We need to have our own models, things that reflect our identity of who we are, and have proper African-rooted democratic values. I think it comes down to that, to our values, that will obviously include that freedom of expression, transparency, and youth voices, and our creative thinking as well. Because at the end of the day, this is our this is our people's way. This is how we supposed to do things. So yeah, but there's definitely quite a lot that we don't know that happens when we try to negotiate and compromise our values in exchange for urban development, if we could say.
Sure. Okay, thank you, Costa. Actually, this is to say that no matter what they give, okay, and well, no matter what they provide to us, so our voices matters always, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like this is the right of expression. So you need to say what you think, and you need also to contribute. If you are living in a community, you have to participate. It's about inclusion, right? So it's the kind of universal right. You need to do that in different perspectives. So if you don't have these rights, actually violates most of other, even these good life condition doesn't matter, because you might be oppressed. Okay, if you can speak while you have voice, this is complicated. So this is kind of the same. You're right, like, okay, your mouth so it's closed, like, okay, you cannot talk, but you want to talk. So this is a kind of really violation. Okay, and thank you once again. So no matter what, so even if we have some people, but looking to our African continent, most of young people, afterly, they are like this. It's like they are in the political space because they are looking for a good life. This is most example. One of the example is what our brother Killa Ace have mentioned. Okay, was someone now is a kind of, you know, speakers from the government, but the one was representing young people. Young people, they look at him as hope. Okay, like the one who could at least change the story. Okay, sorry, the history of Gambia, like that one. But he ended up being part of, let's say, on the other side. Okay, so I think this is to say that no matter if you get a good position, even if you get privilege, if you want to fight, you can keep fighting. And I think this is a better way, because when you get privilege, then you can fight better to level up the marginalized people, to help those ones who needs. Okay, so you can do it better. And then moving forward, I will ask our brother from Kenya. So Mozilla, I would like to know, for example, when it comes to let's say, taking into the consideration the current political in, let's say, the constitutional framework, okay, in our countries, in particular in Kenya, how do you see, let's say, the youth participation in the upcoming years? Okay, because this and last year you have shown that you are becoming strong and was a kind of, let's say, threat for the leading party, like the government, and they were fearing you, like, yes, these young people are coming with double powers, and when we are strong, the idea is to be stronger tomorrow, right? So, in your opinion, what is the perspective of the youth participation, taking into consideration your context for the upcoming years with the experience you get from Gen Z and so on?
Okay, thank you so much. And honestly, I am excited about the future. I don't
Okay.
know about you guys and your countries, but mine is looking different. Mine is exciting. Mine is promising. Not just because we are seeing more youthful people vying for position, but primarily because of the awakening of the minds and understanding of our political failures and our problems. And we are in a new dispensation where almost every other youth in this nation is beginning to see where the problem is. For most of us, we've grown through life being taught that our problem begins with our tribes and so on. And one area that is very promising for us is seeing most of us running from such groupings and such identities, and realizing that we have a nation to build. It's realizing that however much we group into distinct tribes or villages or whatever it is, the betterment of our lives, the creation of wealth, the future of our kids and everything like that depends on systems that are working, depends on economies that are working. And I believe that we are waking up to the fact that those are the fundamentals that have to be fixed within our nation for all of us to be able to move forward. Those are the systems that have to be fixed for meritocracy to matter in our nation. And so discussions are happening, the right discussions are happening, I should say, not just among the educated and the elite youths like ourselves, who probably stay within urban centers or even the metropolitan areas, but to the very basic village level. Everyone is beginning to take every other youthful person seriously. We are no longer being seen just as a participant in the electoral process anymore. They are starting to look at us as a threat, to the status quo, to them being in power, to them dictating every other thing. The beautiful thing that is happening is that we are beginning to question everything. You guys, a lot has been said about the finance bill from last year and everything that happened. And I can tell you for sure that before that, people that used to know that there's a finance bill in this country, they are probably just economists like myself who are concerned about such things, and because it affects our daily work. Not even necessarily because we were concerned about the nation or anything, but even now, every other bill, whether it's affecting agriculture, whether it's affecting our data integrity and privacy issues, whether it's affecting the medical field and every other field, youths are involved, and it's being broken down to the very simple language that every other person can be able to understand. It's being broken down to a level that all of us, even when I'm not a specialist in a particular area, I'm able to participate and understand. So when I say I'm so much optimistic about this nation, that is the point from which I'm speaking, the point from which I'm viewing things in this nation. So we are at a good point. We are making good progress, but still there's a lot to be done. There's a lot of civic engagement that has to be done amongst our youth. At the end of the day, like someone to the previous speaker, you were asking about someone who is not in a political party and everything. I mean, we shouldn't be taking you seriously as a youthful person when you don't belong to a political party or anything, because those are the vehicles, that will give us a voice at the end of the day. And we are seeing that movement. Of course, there are all concerns about, for example, in Kenya, before you vote, you have to be registered by the Electoral Commission. You have to have your voters' identity. Let me say that, because we no longer use the physical cards. You have to use that. So the voice of the youth being reflected on the ballot, with all that knowledge and understanding that is being generated, that level of civic education and an engagement has to keep on rising and rising. And so that is one area where I see a bit of challenge, but I believe that we are making the right progress. You get on social media every single day, the conversation is happening. Today is on a particular topic, tomorrow is another. The other day is something on the court of opinion in the court of law that is being discussed. People are looking at the potential the potential people that we could elect as presidents, as members of parliament, and the discussion is shifting from this guy belongs to my community and so on. We are beginning to interrogate issues on account of what is the track record of this fella? What has this fella done in the past? What has he not done in the past? We are looking at their integrity. We are looking at their ethics. We are looking at their professionalism and qualifications. And those are the right discussions that are beginning to happen in this nation. We have like a year and a half to the next elections in 2017, around the end of August, and I believe that we have enough time for us to keep on engaging, to reach every other part of this nation, to speak and appeal to every other young person. And one advantage that we have in this nation is that these guys, our parents that are still stuck, our parents and grandparents still stuck in this war, is that they took us to school. I want to believe that is one of the major mistakes they did. They took us to school. We can be able to read and understand for ourselves. We know how to use and then platforms like social media are on our side to our advantage. So that tells you that we can reach every single corner of this nation. If you've been on social media, even days like yesterday or just the rest the last week and this week, you've even seen that the young people in Kenya are adding their voice to affairs, to political affairs and human rights and freedom in a country like Tanzania, our neighbors. We've been doing it so much in Uganda also. We've been being involved in such
I can see
that is the awakening that as a nation that we need. That is the awakening as a nation that needs to
definitely
keep on going. It needs to catch roots across Africa, and we
must unite.
Sorry, is someone?
No, I was just highlighting we must unite, definitely.
All right, all right, all right. Okay.
Yes, we
Yeah.
must unite.
So that is the basic truth. And I mean, we've been fed a lot of crap. Most of our history that we read as nations, as individuals, it's not even a true record of what happened in the past. We've been lied to. We've been taught a lot of theories that don't work. We've been given a lot of information that it's misleading, that controls our minds and so on. And those are the things that we have to keep on fighting against. I mean, we can read for ourselves. We can utilize the resources that we have with the internet and everything to read and learn for ourselves. And so that is the beginning of liberating ourselves. When you look at the older generation, most people that did not get the advantage of the education that we have are the sycophants. They are the beginning of our problems in every other single African nation. And that is the biggest threat that we have to run from. I mean, that is what Julius Nyerere, the founding father of Tanzania, told us. It's ignorance, We have to fight. We have to fight that. And the small remaining number of youths that are still stuck in the this guy belongs to our community and everything. I want to believe that it's just a mental shift that they need, because the other day I was arguing, at the end of the day, when we go back to the elections, we have never elected a foreigner as a Kenyan president, and in every other cycle we will never elect a foreigner, right? We are always electing a Kenyan. Why is it that now, even where these guys are coming from, their villages, development isn't exactly that good? So why do we have to keep on pretending that my guy will improve things when I know that when I walk into an institution, when I go to a bank looking for a loan for a business, when I go to a government institution looking for documents and everything, I am treated as an individual. Nobody remembers that I voted for a president who comes from my community.
President.
And such things. So that is the mental awakening that we all need. And generally, I'm excited. I'm excited as a Kenyan youth. I'm excited as a young person because of the mental mobility that I'm seeing amongst the young people in this nation. And this is something that has to be embraced across the continent. And we cannot afford to treat it as an event. It's not an event like what we had in June last year. It's not an event. There are broken systems all over that have to be fixed. They have to be handled continuously, one after another, fixing a system, moving on and to another, revisiting things where we got it wrong, running with what is good, learning from each other, from every other country. What are these guys doing? What are they getting right, and so on. So yeah, for me, I am so excited. I can't wait. I can't wait to see the outcome of our elections in 2017. It's gonna be a long way. It's gonna be a long way. So because I don't expect for us to, magically and out of nowhere end up with a youthful leadership 100%. So the numbers will keep on growing. Might take time, but I am so enthusiastic and believing that we will get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Musila. So this is yes. So Killa Ace?
Yeah, I said I would appreciate it if I was given a chance to ask my brother from Kenya a question,
Yes.
just so that I
Sure.
can learn
Go
some
ahead.
of their experience. Yeah, as the situation in Kenya is inspirational to people like us who wish we had that vibrant youth engagement. So, how or what strategies did you guys put into place, to ensure that now you have a young and vibrant civic discussion with young people, not only at the front line but in all angles? Yeah, like what's this? 'Cause I know it didn't happen in one day. It took time as well. But like, what was the key things, or what did you guys learn from, which we can use, just to learn from on this side of the world, who's going through similar struggles and situations, but with less accountability, like Kenya? Yeah. Thanks.
honestly, when the movement started, it was very organic. Even most of us were still in doubt. We were still in doubt whether is this going to happen, or we were just looking at the situation and trying to see whether it's going to happen. And the first thing I want to believe is that this nation has the young people of this nation have come a long way in terms of overcoming fear. The state has a monopoly of violence through the police, the military, and I want to believe we obtained the lessons from, because the generation during the rule of maybe the first president Moi and Kenyatta, and the second guy Moi, and the fight towards a multi-party democracy in this country, we had a young generation of people in the universities who are now the old people who are giving us problems in this nation. They walked the same paths as we did, and when you compare the two movements, it's that the first thing was that we overcame fear as a people. And I'm telling you this because I was on the streets every other single day when we were on the streets on last year in June. Number two, like I mentioned again, we have the advantage. We have the advantage of social media. We began having conversations. We began having conversation. We began framing the discussion the right way, pinpointing where is it that we are getting it wrong as a nation. And even in as much as young people, as a movement, that we argue that we don't have a particular leader. Even when you look, from the genesis of the movement, we all can pinpoint where it began from, and it's from there are those how do I call them? There are those key opinion leaders, on social media, and particularly on Twitter, that we are not afraid of addressing the real issues. We are not afraid of calling out leaders who are messing us up. I mean, maybe you could cite it's because of our constitution, which is very progressive. It protects a lot of our rights, and especially on free speech online. I don't know about your nations, you guys. So that's another advantage that we have.
So we have all of those great laws, but enforcement is a problem. So yeah.
Oh yeah. I realize that it's the implementation. I mean, they say you can speak, but then your freedom might not be guaranteed after after you speak. So yeah, I mean, guys, it is important that we begin having these conversations, whichever platform that we get. I have seen, what I told, what we call barazas, or the town hall meetings. They've been coming up in a strange way. They used to be there long before I was of age. They disappeared somewhere along the right line. But right now, in every other town, in every other small city and everything, there are those conversations where guys converge physically to have these discussions without fear. So we must begin having these discussions, but primarily we have to educate each other. I mean, it doesn't help my campaign when I'm being ignorant about it, right? I mean, if I'm making a point, or I'm challenging a policy or whatever, and then I'm ignorant about it, then it doesn't help. Nobody is gonna take me seriously. Not the old people, not the young people. So we must now begin to educate each other on what matters for us to be able to change the systems of our governance in our countries. And yeah, we have to support each other. People must be willing to put their freedoms and their lives on the line. I mean, yeah, that is the truth. And gradually, I believe we will get there. And my wish is really, if this could keep on spreading everywhere across this continent, then we would be in good business in terms of liberating our nations a second time.
Thank you, Mozilla. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Due to time
Salute, man.
management,
Salute.
I will. Yeah, so you can just now we are connected. I believe we can, have further conversation, maybe in particular. So you can just chat, see some, the contact, so you can have, we can help each others in our daily basis with the numbers and stuff. Okay, on WhatsApp, on Facebook. So I think we can do it because just is the platform, but doesn't mean that we cannot keep exchanging this information, the knowledge. We cannot keep teaching each other, learning from this exchange is really important, as you have mentioned. So it's something that needs to keep happening, but sometimes I can go straight to Costa to have support on something specific. I can go straight to Killa Ace and Mozilla, and also I can go to Kundai. That's mean that we are Africans and we are connected and we need to do this. So as I always say, our most important asset in the continent is not our resources, like mineral resources as we think we have, but youth is one of the most important resources we have in the continent. Okay, so we see our young brothers trying to go to the west, crossing the Red Sea, and most of these brothers definitely sometimes they don't survive Sahara, they die, and most of them. And what they are looking for better life. What they're looking for, they are looking for something they can let them to survive. So if we invest in youth, actually we are investing in the future. So definitely, if we have resources and we don't have young people to explore these, actually it's nothing. Is what's happening today. We have resources in our countries, but who are exploring is not us, it's someone else. Okay, who dictates the rules and who does everything because we don't have the youth involved. We don't youth capable. Let's talk about information transfer, knowledge. We don't have enough people that can do this. And then, so the important resource we have is young people. So I hope our governments can start seeing this, okay, start not creating barriers as young people to rise, because it's not bad. Having old and young people is really important because we learn with the old people. There is a lot, okay, to share. There is a lot to exchange, and this we cannot have young people without old people. Okay, definitely we will need them somehow. We will need them, like, okay, as for example, if someone give an example one day, if we give someone to lead the country as a president, definitely you will need the former, okay, government. Definitely you will need some the handover, right? You will need it definitely, like, man, we have these bilateral, cooperation with Angola, with South Africa, with Kenya, with these, and then these are the terms, and we always need. So I think we are not a threat as our government, our old people, they see us, but we are just people that come to help, okay, with energy, with willing, with power to change the perspective, the dynamic, and everything. Okay. So sometimes nothing is possible to us without us. Okay, so if we want to have good policies for young people, they need to leave us to participate. They need to give us inclusion. Okay, so we are leading to the end of our debate, our conversation, but we still have some. Let me see how many minutes we have. 30 minutes, but I will just have the last questions that as just to finalize. So we have the issue of Gambia. I'm going to Gambia now. As we know, the African Union Human Rights Commission is based in Gambia, right? And if we have this African Union Human Rights Commission in Gambia, I think when it comes to expectation, okay, where this is based, will be, let's say, a good place to stay, to live, because we have there, okay, a human rights commission based there. But it's the opposite. They will still have cases of, illegal, let's say, prison, like arbitrary arrest of protesters, and such as recent case I have mentioned previously, like Aleuba, the brothers from
Yeah.
Ethiopia, was
Yeah.
arrested, and others, okay, that they were protesting. So how can this situation be explained? You know, and you as a social activist and musician, do you think, okay, we can jointly advocate, for an end of, let's say, a kind of persecution in Africa? What is your opinion on this, Killa Ace?
Yes, definitely. I believe as a Pan African by nature, that should be the way forward because we all go through the same things, but just in a different situation. And if we put our different forces and energies together, and have one common voice on a continental level, I do believe we can have so much more impact and we can also learn and exchange from each other. So I think that's something that should be um, prioritized, amongst all of us, because one, if you look at Africa and you look at the situations and you look at the problems, they're all relative. It might be like example, maybe Uganda is more serious than Gambia or, and etc. But when it comes to the fundamentals of it, it's all the same common cause that we are fighting for, and unless we as the activists, the musicians, the artists don't come together, to equally advocate for the continent to come together, I do believe we're gonna be battling our fights individually and also be more isolated than when we, collectively campaign and fight together. It adds more weight to have somebody from Kenya commenting about a case, in the Gambia and vice versa. It shows that it's beyond just that territory. And also, when it comes to the human rights agencies in Gambia, unfortunately, a lot of organizations are here. They've been here for a while. Many of them were even here when the dictator was here. You understand? So when it comes to these organizations and their mandate of overall implementing, I just think they're just nice buildings that are just there. But even AU, when it comes to its policies, through ECOWAS itself, which advocates for free movement of goods and people within member states, is that alone has a major problem in implementing, not to mention, other cases like human rights within a particular country. And unfortunately, a lot of these institutions, they're like half and half. Like it's what I call like half and half. Like they're trying to be nice in the eyes of the government, whilst also trying to please the people at the same time. When in these kind of cases, that's not needed. If it's wrong, you just got to come out outright. It's wrong, denounce it, and apply what is necessary based on your institutions. But unfortunately, there's too much bureaucracy, but luckily, we have our own National Human Rights Commission, which I personally must, definitely give credit to, as someone who personally brought cases of artists who were violated, and they assisted in making sure that those people got their justice. So we do have our independent Human Rights Commission, that's independent from the government through the leadership of Emmanuel Juf, which I do commend as of now, based on their work and putting out statements and being 100% honest when it comes to cases of human rights. And last but not least, I also gotta also acknowledge the fact that in as much as we do go through situations in Gambia, you know, I'm also humbled knowing that like there's countries where activists can't even speak out. There's activists who can't go on Facebook Live right now and talk about situations like this in their countries. So at the same time, I'm in solidarity with people in that struggle in as much as we're in the same struggle. But I feel like we have higher level cases towards our struggles
Yes,
and
yeah, thank you.
100% solidarity with those. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Killa Ace. Thank you very much. So actually, as Africans, this is one of the important things. Even if you go like let's say backwards when it comes to now, we are talking about Liberation Week, right? So it means that in the past, we are talking about 1960s, most of our fathers from the liberation movement, they were helping each other to get the independence of their country. So they could succeed, okay, to fight the oppressor, the colonizer through the solidarity. Okay, it's like as a Gambian, I'm free from colonization. Why I can see my brother suffering? Why not helping him? So I think this is the same, you know, thing we need to do today. We are not fighting the colonizer anymore, but actually we are fighting our own brothers who try actually who keep colonizing us somehow. So these must be done. Like, okay, it's happening, and this one of the good examples is what Alibao done in Gambia. The guy is from Ethiopia, and then with some friends, they were in Gambia helping some protesters. It's like doesn't mean I'm not Gambian, but I'm from Ethiopia and I'm African, so I'll join the struggle. So it's the same thing I need to do for Angola. I need to go to Kenya. I need to go to join Gen Z. I need to. It's like it's a struggle of young people, and as long as Mozilla did is something that actually makes sense. Okay, it's like they're advocating for something that's really makes sense, so I can join this struggle. So this is really important. So the key word is solidarity. So in different levels, solidarity is very important. So thank you once again. So and we have just to yeah, we still have 24 minutes, but I think we are finishing. So our sisters, I don't know if we still have our sister from Botswana with us, and also from Zimbabwe. I don't know if we still have Kundai. Kundai, are you still with us?
I think at some point they were in the waiting room,
Ye-
just backstage, just double check if they're around.
Maybe, but the idea is to look like, for example, 2024 was considered the year of the African democracy. Okay, looking in the, you're talking about the AU. Okay, so because of the greatest, let's say, number of electoral events we went through. Okay, we have kind of like different changes that were not expected in the African continent. Okay, looking to them like AU members countries, for example. So, but on the other hand, we have, let's say, contests on elections, and one of the cases Mozambique, as you know, we went through I think 5 months, okay, and of contests because of the election, like electoral results. Okay, for example, and according to some reports and research, so um, we can say we have Zimbabwe, we have Zambia involved in this kind of issue for Mozambique, for example, when it comes to electoral, illicit, let's say, action, for example. So we have Zimbabweans and also Zambian. Okay, according to the reports that these people went to, let's say, they came actually to Mozambique to vote. Okay, in the name of the leading party is what's happened. So how do we think this is for everyone? And I can go to Costa. So, how do you think we can fight against this issue? Okay, for example, this happens a lot in Africa. I'm not talking just from like a presidential election perspective, even for municipalities. Sometimes they take people from rural areas, for those that are, part of the municipalities, and then they bring them to vote in favor of specific party. And for Mozambique wasn't different. So we have a different reports about Zimbabwe, Zimbabwean people coming to vote in Mozambique, Zambian people, sometime Malawian people, okay, uh, answering for the invitation of the leading party. So it's the same also when it comes to Zimbabwean, let's say, election process. We have some brothers from also Mozambique going to Zimbabwe and other, close countries to vote. So I would like to know from you, Costa. How do you think we can fight against when it comes to transparency? You know, it's about transparency and also legality. So, how do you think we can fight against this phenomena?
Forgive me for laughing here, but as you brought it up, you just mentioned me of some episodes way back. I think it was 2008. Yeah, that we had elections post civil war. I think it was the first elections post civil war in Angola, and then the one that followed. And we had the same phenomena with our neighboring countries as well. So it just reminded me of that. And to be honest, I believe that still happens, as you said, either in my country or any other, as you mentioned, in that it did happen. And there's probably evidence, for the case of Mozambique. Yeah, and I think it's super complicated. And I could say that it's a matter of educating people on the importance of voting and like how critical that is, so that we can have numbers from our own countries, because imagine if other people are coming to vote on our behalf. That's also because of the fact that we ourselves or our own people to some extent also don't participate in this. And that would be also a measure to counter that, to balance the scale. If we actually know what we want and we express it on the ballots, that's a way. And educating the other side as well. But I don't think it's not only a matter of education, because if people, as it was mentioned earlier, I think it was you, Samuel, that said that it's actually an offer, it's not just something that randomly happens, but you're actually being proposed, you're being offered the possibility of like you voting on behalf of something, or in return for you get something in return for it. So yeah, it's a very complex thing, and honestly, I personally don't have a solution for that, because I think that it's something that has so many layers. It's so complex. It starts with working with ourselves and working with our neighboring communities. So it's a collective effort to make sure that those things don't happen. But then again, it comes down to that conversation of what happens in our rural communities. When we mobilize the youth, when we mobilize our communities, do we reach those people that the government has as a backup to vote for them? Or we just say in our spaces, we just say in our quiet corners in our cities where people have actually social media or access to that, to be informed that other things are happening, so they need to position themselves. So I think there's those gaps as well that we need to cover. But it comes down to a great collective effort of making sure that we don't have these gaps, that people, wherever they are informed, equipped to make the right decisions. But on the same note, that people will make convenient decisions rather than the right decision when it's necessary. If they have needs, they can be met, because of the political situation, and you give them those offers, you give them those incentives, those stimulus, then they're gonna do it anyway. It's a free pass, and that's the case. But I think Killa Ace has a point to add. Please.
So that's very interesting. I just wanted to understand. Yeah. So are you saying that people are given voters cards from other countries to come and vote in, example, Mozambique or whatever country? Like, is that what you guys are?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we had this case with Zimbabwe and Zambia.
Okay. So the former president did something similar in Gambia, where people from southern Senegal were given. But then the problem is in the issuing of the voters registration process. If we can tackle and hold accountable those issuing those, and having a clear database of how they're being issued, that's a good place to start. Because people don't get rights to vote like that. They have documents that are printed and given to them by an authority that has been entrusted to keep it, fair. But unfortunately, it seems like that's where the loopholes.
Yeah, can I jump in there just to add? Because that's right. So I think digitalization and having a clear system, open system, that's also very important, transparency. But in the case, I remember clearly, I was so young, I think I couldn't even vote at the time, obviously. But I remember that, with, as you're saying, like, it's not only, so we had that system, like you have your ID and then you have your electoral card or something. And in that stage, people were given the IDs even. So that means that when you go to the system, you're going to find them on the system, and then they have the right to vote. So it's like, vote. So it was thought through, actually. So it was, it's super, super, super tricky.
Really planned,
digitalization definitely covers some of these gaps for sure. Yeah.
Thank you, Costa. Yeah, this is still a way. Is still a way to go, because when it comes to digitalization, we still have more investment. It's more expensive, and so on. And our countries are not actually. Sometimes they are able, but they know that this is the only way they have to stay in power, so they are not willing to change the system. And this is one of the way. And just to, as you say, we are leading to the end of the session. And we have Kundai, because this was question for Kundai and wasn't online, about the issue related to, the reports, showing the scenario of Zimbabwean coming to Mozambique, to support, in vote, the leading party, in the country. So what is your overview on, fighting against this kind of things? Okay, even the opposite, like Mozambicans, going to Zimbabwe, to other, borders countries to support in vote.
All right. Thank you very much. So I think from my previous submissions, I highlighted the issue of numbers. Okay. We need to really appreciate the numbers that we have. And even if there could be issues to do with rigging and all that, there are times where even if you want to rig, but the numbers, there will be so much convincing enough. In that regard, now what I would suggest is maybe measures to curb around such issues. I would like to come back to what my brother from Kenya highlighted, the issue of knowledge and understanding of these systems. I'll give a perspective from Zimbabwe, which I'm sure most of us here can resonate. You'll find that if we go back to our tertiary institutions, people who are in these student representatives, the committees, whatever it is, most of them, they are doing political science, or they are doing something related to political science, either politics, whatever it is, administration, whatever it is. Rare cases, you find somebody doing medicine in those spaces. Rare cases, you find an engineer in those spaces. I'll speak for myself. I've come from an engineering background. When I was still in uni, I would say, those guys from politics, it's their thing. They're doing whatever they're doing. It's only later on that I realized that, whatever they're doing also contributes to my own future at this uni.
Definitely.
So you find that in my country, I appreciate my brother from Kenya, because to say there's light at the end of the tunnel. In my country, we are almost seeing this light, but like he said, it's a very long way. It's not a fly-by-night thing. We have started to engage some of these, a lot of these youth organizations to say, we need to provide leadership seminars where we simply say, it's okay, you are doing your medicine, but you are also allowed to join this SRC, the Student Representatives Committee, because those are the grassroots or the foundations of this political influence or this political passion into some of these spaces. So this is what we've started doing, so that it's not a political science student's game, but it becomes a point where if you get into that space, at least with a technical skill or with some technical expertise, we know that you're able to advocate better or lobby better. So the issue of career guidance then comes into play. So you find that even if we are to go to our members of parliament and all that, rare cases you find a doctor saying they want to become a councillor to start with. Rare cases where you make matters worse, a youth. Rare cases you find them. It's like it's being said, it's for so and so. It's their thing, not ours. So the issue of career guidance, the issue of advocates for those students in tertiary institutions is very critical. You go down to these junior councils or junior parliamentarians. Most of these things, they are done for these elite schools or these private schools, those in the rural areas, they are not even aware about these things, and somebody is representing them. So the issue of career guidance is very critical, to say, you know what, you have your career, you are a doctor, you are a nurse, you are a graphic designer, whatever it is, but this contributes to not only to yourself but to your community, your family, and these tribes you were talking about. So I'm sure that's the first thing. Then the next thing should be the issue of, we need to be able to draw the line between completion and competence. Completion, we are simply saying we have completed the space, but competence, we also need to embrace into competence. So that at least at the end of the day, if we know that we have this one person in place, then we know that that particular one person, they are also competent enough for this, they can push forward. Because a space can be opened, but to complete, not for competence. So we need a clear distinction between that. So I think that issue of career guidance is very critical, so that everyone is in the loop and in the clear. And my brother, you mentioned about the issue of voter registration and all that. Sometimes I believe the advocacy is not so smart enough. We want to talk about voting, yet elections maybe are 3 months away. And if somebody has not registered, even if you speak how hard, they are never going to do anything, because they are not on the voters'
Yes.
roll. So kudos to you guys from Kenya to say this thing. We have to start it earlier. We have to start to talk about these things way in advance, so that by the time the voter registration opens, everybody is in full swing to be able to speak. So I think, like I said, advocacy, drawing the line between competence and completion, as well as the issue to do with the career guidance, the career aspect of things. It can really, imagine having a president who is an actuarial scientist or who is an actuary, which we will be getting somewhere. But most of these things, it's always honorary doctorate, honorary, because there won't be the papers or the expertise. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we are all laughing because you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
I
spot
know.
on.
You
Yeah.
know, and thank you very much, Kundai. Thank you for this, wonderful insight. Actually, this is what's happened mostly, countries, and we need to actually, as also Costa said, education sometimes is very important. Okay, but also you have mentioned the issue of the career guidance. Is also important, because not just, as you said, also in your previous approach, that when it comes to election, we have the party, and sometimes it's not about the background that person has. Okay, so it's just someone's there in position, but without the background, without the competence. Okay, to lead a department, to lead, let's say, the team and stuff, and then we end up having this bad result we have been facing in across, let's say, the continent, because someone is there just for the trust of someone. Okay, like, okay, this is a minister of, let's say, something else, but is not, let's say, doesn't have the, let's say, background on finance or something else, and but because of political trust is holding that position. So this is one of the things we need to see and advocate for changing. I hope it's a long way, like is a long way, as we have mentioned, I think, but the people there, they can see that the young people are fighting, and they are trying to at least adjust things. Okay, and then we probably are going to have some leaders that they have at least some background on that area, that are holding as a position. We'll start having some economists in finance, some doctors in as minister of health and stuff. Okay, so it's a way to go. And we don't have our sister from Botswana, but we were closing with her. And as I said, we're just remaining with 7 minutes, so we are heading to the end, because the idea was to have the best practice of Botswana. Actually, Botswana has been a kind of few reference of transparency, okay, in parliament, and also democracy. She's back. Thank you. Welcome back, sister. So yeah, just in time. So I was mentioning Botswana has been one of the few references, sorry, for transparency, okay, and democracy on the continent. But basically, when it comes to SADC, like SADC region. So, what are the lessons? Okay, we can learn from you. Previously you have mentioned some. Okay, so I would like you to highlight more so we can, end our session with the best practice of Botswana. Chikunyana, are we together? Okay, I think we don't have our sister, Chikunyana, okay, ready, but she was actually was supposed to answer this question, just to give us some recommendations on how they do things in Botswana and how probably we can learn from them to try to, advocate in our countries. As it's not possible, we can just have 30 seconds. We still have 5 minutes for each. Costa, 30 seconds just for final remarks. Representing Mozambique, sorry, Angola and South Africa. So, what are the remarks you give? 30 seconds, please. We cannot hear you. I think you are in mute.
Sorry, thank you very much. I think I was already spending my 30 seconds, but I have 3 recommendations. Not sure if I'll fit them on 30 seconds, but speaking from a multidisciplinary spatial designer and involved with youth and different formats or forms of dialogue, I believe that the first step that we have as well to take on in different countries or spaces that we're in is to build meaningful intergenerational and cross-sector kind of dialogue spaces. If it's more forums, perhaps we don't need more forums, but just organize or structure the ones that we already have, and reach out to other publics as well that we usually don't engage with, different communities, rural communities, schools, as was mentioned by Kundai, and using other platforms as other public events where we can actually reach people and educate and mobilize them as well. So that's about organizing ourselves where youth and elders can actually have a space to discuss those things, but from a different approach. And second, I think it's extremely important that we mobilize people by making policy and public participation accessible. So with that, I mean, looking at example of Killa Ace and other artists and other people that are in different spaces as well that are just making law and this kind of knowledge accessible to people, as was mentioned before as well. Because if people are not informed, then we can't do anything. We can't mobilize, we can't get to the numbers if people can't even understand the conversations that we're having. So it's extremely important that we bring it to the level of the people that we're communicating with, that we have expectations on. So I think it's extremely important to make this accessible. And thirdly, I would say that we have, as we said, we have so many beautiful public policies and so many things, even the African Youth Charter declarations, and so many things that are beautiful just in theory, but in practice we fail. But if we could come together to reinforce those, to make sure that those are feasible and applicable, then we could actually be leading or heading somewhere. So we need to organize ourselves, mobilize, and give power to the people.
Thank you very much, Costa, for your 1 minute more. And now we go to yes, our sister from Zimbabwe, from Zim. Please, your final remarks, recommendation.
Thank you very much, my brother. I would like to just add to say, I'm sure let's also visit the religious groups. They have the masses, they have the numbers, they have the youths who are in numbers. For your apostolic sect, your Catholics, your whatever it is, we go there and we talk about these issues.
Exactly.
It's one thing to be said you said you are coming here to talk about the church. Now you are talking about the elections. Is at least they have heard. They have the numbers. For me, I'll keep stressing on the numbers. Let's ride on the numbers that we have. In my country, we are 66.7%. Imagine if we can all come together and say this is what we want. Then maybe lastly, I'll take us maybe to what we are always told, because I was not there in the liberation struggle. But we are told that when they were still young, they would go into different homes, speaking to the guardians, to the parents, saying, please, can we have your children, your daughters? We want to go to war. We want to fight for, we want to fight for independence and all that. I'm sure it's about time that we copy the same model. We try and lobby for the numbers.
Strategy.
Yes.
Yes.
But now we are simply saying, you know what? We want the youth who are the masses to rule, so that at least we can advocate better for our issues, because nothing without us for us. Imagine if a simple example, look at the picture that shows heads of state and government in Africa from these African Union pictures. That will tell you that what will be the time when they start to talk about the youth. What's the time they will start to talk about the women? What time will they start to talk about that? Because they are thinking of their pieces of land they've left at home. They are thinking of their farms they've left at home. They are thinking of their mansions they've left at home. The level of playing field is not the same. So let's utilize the numbers, these religious groups. That's my last point.
Thank you. Thank you, sister. Thank you, sister. So we go to Kenya. Final remarks. You are closing.
All right. So here's my question: Who determines what is good for us? I mean, who decides what's good for us? You know, we can't let other people keep on deciding what's good for us. So that is a question we must ask ourselves, and then we need to answer it truthfully to ourselves.
Okay.
And that is where we are going to know what really matters for us. You know,
for us. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, brother, for
That
this.
is my question.
Powerful. Yeah. Nothing for us without us. Yeah, I get the point. So, Killa Ace, your 30 seconds.
An Africa without borders should be the program. Why am I treated like a foreigner in my own land? An Africa where our sons and daughters are not the poorest. An Africa so dominant the world won't ignore us. A peaceful Africa where conflicts are avoided. An Africa that benefits from its gold and oil. An Africa with conflicts with positive, progressive, positive, honest leaders who are honest. And how about an Africa where the people are empowered? Control the market since the raw material is ours. And how about an Africa with one common currency? An Africa where no one's hungry and everyone shall eat. Let's change the narrative. It's time to wake up Africa. Being divided will only break up Africa. Let's change the narrative. It's time to wake up Africa. United States of Africa.
Emperor Haile.
Yes, yeah. Wonderful, brother. This is a kind of wonderful ending of our session. You're the greatest. Thank you, Killa Ace, for this, this wonderful and beautiful intervention. So I can see our sister from Botswana. I don't know if she can still hear. Sister from Botswana. Are we together? No, we lost her again. And thank you very much for making time to be part of this panel. This was really grateful. And thank you very much, guys. I want to thank you, my brother from Kenya. I want to thank you, my sister from Zim. I want to thank you also, my brother from Angola and South Africa, and also a great man from Gambia, Killa Ace. So, guys, thank you very much, and I hope you keep having a wonderful week. I hope you keep fighting for the struggle. We are just here, but I hope and I believe that we inspire many young people, among us, so we can just keep fighting. Our fight is not for a vain. Okay, we need to keep fighting. We need to keep giving our best, and it's a long way to go. And stay blessed. A luta continua.
Obrigada. Asante sana.
Love.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Are you there?
Yeah, we see.
Hello?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate. Unfortunately, I attend the meeting 100% because I was also at school, but I think that we fulfilled our main goals. So, and what we should do now is take all the takeaways and the key points to implement in our own countries for the well-being of our society, specifically for the youth. So thank you, thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you. See you.